Okay, we're discussing the machlokes of Rabbi Shmuel. Now we're going down. We're down. We're discussing the machlokes of Rabbi Shmuel. You know, everybody we got stuck on a point. The Gemara says the machlokes of Rabbi Shmuel is. The Gemara says that there's a 6-month period from Nairus to Bagrus. From adulthood to full maturity is a 6-month process. 6 months. Bogeres is a full mature woman. She's considered fully mature in terms of she leaves the domain of the father. As long as she's a nara or a katana or a minor, the father, she's in the domain of the father. He marries her off. He could be made for her Hanadorim. He knows her oaths, her vows, whatever it may be. The moment she passes that threshold into full adulthood, she leaves his domain. 79. Okay. Now, the Gemara says we have machlokes Rabbi Shmuel. On the last day of the 6-month period, okay, she becomes a bogeres. Let's say before Shkia, before sundown, the last day, and the father was Makadish her in the morning. She was Makadish herself in the afternoon, and we're not sure. So it's a transitional day, and the question is, when did she become a Bogeres? Did she become a Bogeres later in the day? So when the father married her was pre-full maturity, so she was still in his domain, so therefore her marriage is not a marriage? Or do we say, just as she's a Bogeres now, the transition already took place in the morning, and therefore she already was no longer in the domain of the father in the morning, so therefore the father's act of marriage is not a marriage, because she's no longer his domain. And when she married herself off later in the day, her act is she's married. Her act is an act of marriage. So the question is, who is she married to? Is she married to the person who her father married her off to? Or is she married to the man who she accepted the marriage from? So we have machlokes Rabbi Shmuel. Rab says that we follow the present. We find her to be a Bogeres now. So we say, as she's a Bogeres now, she was a Bogeres in the morning. Shmuel says it's not clear. Therefore, it's a suffix. She's suffering with Kudeshes. We're not sure whose marriage was a marriage, the father's marriage or her marriage. Rav says no. We go after the present. As she's a Bogeres now, she's a Bogeres in the morning because it's irresolvable, and therefore she's married to the second man, not to the first man. That's the machlokes. You have a problem, Alan? She's a Bogeres, so she's married to the man she married herself off to, not the father. No, she married herself. That was she did the second act of marriage. It was later in the day. Father married off in the morning. Rob says she's married to the second man, not to the first man. So therefore, the father's marriage is not who she married to. She's married to the man she accepted the kiddushin from. One, two. Does one come before two, or two come? Okay, but now we're talking about two. Okay. Before sundown, we find her to be a Bogeres. We find out that she's a Bogeres before the end of the day, and the father accepted kiddushin earlier in the day for her, and then she accepted later in the day when she was a Bogeres. The question is, do we say as she was a Bogeres later in the day, she was a Bogeres earlier in the day? Therefore, the father's marriage is not a marriage. No, if she was a Bogeres later, she was a Bogeres earlier. She already left the father's domain in the morning. So when the father married her off, she was no longer his domain. He had no authority over her. She left his domain. Shmuel says, but it's a question. We're not sure. We know later she wasn't, but early in the day, it's possible she was still in his domain because she wasn't yet a full Bogeres. Well, that's the discussion. That's the discussion. Okay? So we'll see on Amid Bays. That day, the last day of the 6-month period, that is the day normally when the transformation takes place. That's the day. Prior to that day, it never takes place. Sometimes, in fact, that's a fact. We'll see it on Amid Bays. That's a fact. Before that last day of the 6-month period, never happens. Never a consideration. That day is a transitional day. Therefore, we have a question. When did this? It could have happened in the morning. It definitely happened by the end of the day. The question did it happen at the beginning of the day. So Rav says, as I see it happen now, Chazokah the Hashtates, as it happened now, it happened earlier. Shmuel says it's not clear. It may have, it happened today, but we're not sure when, so therefore it's a Sophic.
So someone became a Bulgaris at 12 years.
No, it's not possible. We'll see. It's not possible. It's not possible. No, here the day would begin. We'll say at dawn. At dawn, correct. Just fact. That's just factually what happens. Okay. So how do we explain the machlokas, Rav and Shmuel? Because it has to do with Amud Beis, with the second side of the page. Now, every girl on the sixth day, on the last day, the transition takes place on that last day of the 6th month. That means on the last day, it's called Chazok Asuri Lishtanos. Her state will change. There will be a transition on that day. Right? On the last day of the 6-month period, that is when the transition is going to take place. And we see it did happen. So, a Chazoka Asuri Lishtanos, a Chazoka that's meant to change, does that Chazoka have any value? So at the beginning of the day, let's say, she was a Nara up to the beginning of the day, of the last day. Do we say it goes beyond that point? Or do we say, since on that day it's meant to change, it has no value whatsoever? Meaning, the cutoff is the end of that previous day. The next day already, there is no Chazoka. If actually we see at the end of the day she's still in Nara, so she's still in Nara. It's fact. But if it's unclear, there is no Chazoka to establish what she was at the beginning of the day. So what do I have to go on? I have to go on the present. As she was a Bulgaris at the end of the day, Chazoka says she was a Bulgaris at the beginning of the day. Normally, you pit one Chazoka against another, correct? We always discussed. A woman is born a Basula, a virgin. Now she loses her virginity. When do we say she lost her virginity? When we find out she's no longer a virgin, we say that's when it happened. But up to that point, we say she was a Basula, she was a virgin. Because it's not meant to change unless there's an external factor which causes the change. So when you pit a Chazoka Dashta against a Chazoka Meikoro, a present state versus a presumed state, you always go after the presumed state, and we say the change happened the last moment possible. But over here, we have no previous status, according to Rav. A transitional status is not called a status. It's not a Chazoka period. So what do I have to go on? Just on the present. On the present. Now she's a Bulgaris. The presumption she was a Bulgaris at the beginning of the day. No, but that's a suffix. No, then it would be a suffix. Then it would be a suffix. She may have been, she may have not been. No, but if she may have been, then the father's marriage is a marriage. Right? But if I say it's nothing, so I say Chazoka says now she was a Bulgaris. She was a Bulgaris at the beginning of the day. Therefore, the father's marriage is not a marriage. Doesn't exist. That's Rab's position. Rab says, Shmuel says, no, it exists, but doesn't exist with the force of a presumed status, because it's in the transitional, it's a weakened Chazoka. So if you have a weakened Chazoka versus a present Chazoka, it's not resolved. So if it's not resolved, it's a suffix. Right, that's the question. What is the strength of the initial Chazoka? That's not a Chazoka, it's a reality. So now the question is, if I find her to be now, what does that say she was before? There's a presumption. Is that now? She probably was that before. Unless you have a previous presumed status, which says differently. There is no previous presumed status, according to Rab. That's fact. She's a Nara yesterday. Not another question. If the father would have married her yesterday, there's no question. She was a Nara. Because we say only the last day of the 6th month, that's when the change normally takes place. It's possible it may not. Not the last moment, the last day. Sometime on the last day of the 6-month period. No, today. Our question, sometime on that last day of the 6-month period, it happened sometime during that day. I'm not sure. Did it happen in the morning, or did it happen in the afternoon? Happened in the afternoon, then the father's marriage is a marriage. But if it happened in the morning, then the father's marriage is not a marriage. So we're in flux. How do we resolve it? Rav says we have a way to resolve it. The morning chazaka, there's no chazaka in the morning. Because yesterday's chazaka has no relevance to today. Because today is the transitional day. So what do I have to go on? Only the present. The hashta chazaka, the hashta. The present chazaka, she's a Bulgaris now. The probability was, presumption is she was a Bulgaris in the morning. Shmuel says no. That factually, in the morning, she was a Nara. The presumption, she was a Nara. So I'm pitting the presumption of the morning versus the present presumption, right? What I find now. And since it doesn't have the force of a normal Chazaka de Meikora, because it's in the transitional state, so I'm pitting one against the other. So it's a question. It's a question. She's suffering with Kadeshes. That's Shmuel. No. Shmuel would agree a million% that the father's is not. If he did it second, we found her to be a Bulgaris. We found her to be a Bulgaris, then the father's marriage is definitely not a marriage.
You can't marry her.
He would be the same.
So she got married at 8 in the morning. The father married at 12.
And we found her.
4 o'clock.
Be the same question. Same question. Be the same question. But we know today she's a Bulgaris. So Bulgaris says, we find her now, we go all the way back to the beginning of the day, according to Rav.
She wouldn't be married at all.
According to Rav, she would be married.
She wouldn't be married because in the morning. Oh, of course, right.
She would be married. She's a Bulgaris.
Right.
According to Shmuel, it's a suffix. Well, according to Shmuel, would be a question.
She wouldn't be married at all. If he married her as a Bulgarian, you can't do that. So in the morning.
No, it's a suffix. According to Rav, it's a suffix. Shmuel, it's a suffix. Same suffix. At the end of the day, we find her to be a Bulgaris, right? So she was a Bulgaris before, but possibly she was a Nara.
Correct.
So when she married herself off, she may have been a Nara. When the father married off, she may have been a Bulgaris. So it's a suffix with Eshes. It's a suffix. Was her act of kiddushin a kiddushin, or was the father's act a kiddushin? Same question. The only reason why we discussed the father first is because the father, until now, she's been in his domain, so he acted as a father, assuming that she was still in his domain. But factually, physically, she wasn't examined when he married her. Okay? That's the argument. Okay, so now the Gemara asks, Rav Omar Hari Bulgaris Lefonenu. Rav says she's right. Presently, she's a Bulgaris. We're on the last day of the 6th month. Midahashta Bulgaris, Mitzafranami Bulgaris. As we find her to be a Bulgaris now, in the morning, we presume she was also Bulgaris. Shmuel doesn't know. Hashta Hudaisi, Simonim. I say maybe no. Only now she first became a Bulgaris. So if that's the question, if that is the issue, she may have been a Nara before. So if that's the case, the father's marriage is a marriage. So what Shmuel says, it's a suffix. So Shmuel Maishnomi Mikvah. According to Shmuel, we have a Mishnah. Why is the case of the question where we find her to be a Bulgaris then they different than the case of the mikvah? What's the case of the mikvah? Nan, famous Mishnah. Mikvah should nimdad. V'nimtza choser. Initially, he had a mikvah had 40 saw, was measured, let's say, a week ago. In the interim, people have been using the mikvah. A week later, we measure it, we find it to be lacking in water. So it doesn't function as a mikvah any longer. Kol tara shenaso al gabov lemafreya. All the taros, things that were spiritually pure, which people engaged with as a result of the original tefillah, whether it was vessels, whether it was people, bein b'shus hayochad, bein b'shus harabim, whether it was in private domain, whether it was a public domain, tameos, everything's contaminated. Definitely contaminated, not even the suffix. Since it was last measured till today. So, you'd say, let it be a suffix. Well, let it be a suffix. But you see, we have a principle, suffix to Rishus HaYochid is Bani Tomei. You know, the Torah says that the woman sequesters herself with another man and she's forewarned. What does the Torah say? Until it's been verified that she didn't commit adultery, she's off limits to her husband. How do we know that? Because the Torah uses the word v'nitma'ah. She's been defiled. We treat her as if she's definitely been defiled unless we know she was not defiled. That, even though we call her suspected adulteress, but what status do we give her? We say she's a sota. Why? When a woman sequesters herself with another man, where is it? It's in private. That's a Rosh Hashanah. So since the Torah uses the term tuma, so we draw from that, the Gemara says in Nida, that whenever we're dealing with spiritual impurity, if it's a Rosh Hashanah, although a person has a chazaka, you have a chazaka, have a cheskes tara, we ignore the chazaka. Whatever presumed status you had until now, we ignore, and we treat you as if you're definitely contaminated. What happened with Rosh Hashanah? What happened? The same thing would happen with Rosh Hashanah. Person goes through a field, and it's a public area. And later it comes up a question, they found a grave, and you're not sure, did you pass over the grave in that public location? So that's something to Rosh Hashanah. Something Rosh Hashanah is not comparable to the case of Sota. Because the Sota, when she commits adultery, it's in private. Therefore, there you go after Chazaka. You follow the Chazak. Person that has a presumed status that he was pure, then you lose the status. So until it's been clarified that you did pass over it, you retain your status of purity. But but here it says no. Regarding the mikveh, no. We say regarding anything that you engaged in as a result of that tefillah, whether it's Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Hashanah, it's vari tomei. It's vari tomei. Meaning it's not even a suffix. It's not even a suffix. You understand? Let's say you would tovel something in the mikveh, and now you put truma in that vessel. We treat, even though the truma was put in the vessel in Rosh Hashanah, it's definitely tummy. We say that vessel is definitely a tummy vessel, and therefore it's contaminated. The person himself, it's as if he definitely did not go to the mikveh. Did not go to the mikveh. Even Rosh Hashanah. What do you mean? We said Rosh Hashanah, you follow Chazaka. So that's what the Gemara is going to discuss. That's exactly what the Gemara is going to discuss now. There's a Chazaka Meikora. On the mikveh has a presumed status that it was kosher till the last moment. So if it's kosher till the last moment, when did you find out it was lacking in water? A week later. This man already was tovel 4 days prior to that. So Chazaka of the mikveh should say, when he was tovel, it was definitely a valid mikveh, functioning mikveh. So why is he tummy? That's what the Gemara is dealing with. So that's what the Gemara is dealing with. Because he himself also has a presumed status. Because even though the mikveh has a Chazaka Meikora, has a presumed status, but he also has a presumed status before he went to the mikveh. So the Gemara says it's a 2-to-1. Because of a Chazaka Dahashta, of the mikveh now I find to be deficient, and he has a presumed status that he's tummy. The mikveh is only one presumed status. It's a 2-to-1, therefore the 2 override the 1. That's what the Gemara is going to say in a moment. Okay? In time of the Beis HaMikdash, everybody had relevance to the mikveh. You weren't permitted to go to the Beis HaMikdash if you were contaminated. You weren't permitted to eat truma if you were contaminated. You weren't permitted to eat the Korban Pesach if you were contaminated. So whatever has relevance to a woman had relevance to the man. The mikveh was as integral to a male's life as a woman's life. Today, all that has no relevance to us anymore. Identical. Everything was identical. Today, because we're all contaminated, the only has relevance to us is when a woman's permitted to her husband. That's the only, mikveh only has relevance to that particular. Why is a woman not permitted to her husband? Does a man become a menstruant? So yeah, but that doesn't not permit you to be engaged with a woman, right? Man's a thief. Is he permitted to engage with his wife? Man's a murderer. Is he permitted? What has no relevance to that? Okay. So the Gemara says, so over there it says, everything, whether it's in public domain, private domain, is definitely tummy. So the question is, so what do you see over there? Because I go after the Chazaka Dahashta. I say, as it was deficient now, it's deficient before. So what do we say? As the mikveh, as she's a bogeris now, she was a geris prior. So it seems to contradict Shmuel. Shmuel says no. Shani hos nikol mem habi tomei al cheskoso. The reason is because he has a cheskes tuma. Before he went to the mikveh, right? What was his presumed status? He was contaminated. Wait, so what am I doing? So there, and what is a contaminated status? That's not a transitional status. The only way you're able to change that if he immerses himself into a valid mikveh. So now our question is, was it valid when he immersed himself? The emel lo toval. So since he has a presumed status, he's tomei, and there's a possibility he wasn't tovel. That's the reason why he's tomei. So says adrabo, having mikvah kaskoso. But the mikveh has a presumed status that initially was valid. So which mikveh did he go into? He went into a mikveh that was a functional mikveh. So therefore his presumed status should have no relevance any longer. Correct? The emel choser. The chazaka, the meikara, the original presumed status should rule the mikveh was a valid mikveh. Therefore it wasn't deficient. So when he immersed himself in a contaminated status, he was relieved of his contamination. Says, you know why we don't say that? Because the answer is because presently you found it to be deficient. So similarly here, presently she's a bogeris, and she's a bogeris now. She was a bogeris before. Says, hashtu de bogra. She says, no, she only became a bogeris now, at this moment. Hosamnami hashtu de choser. Just as Shmuel is saying, the reason why it's a suffix is because she became a bogeris now. Over there we say he's definitely tomei. It should be a suffix, correct? Let's say right now became deficient. So if he became deficient now, that means he may have immersed himself in what? In a valid mikveh. So if that's the case, why is it definitely tomei? It should be minimally suffix according to Shmuel. There you have two negatives. You have two chazokas which indicate negativity, and here you only have one. What does that mean? He has a presumed status he was contaminated, right? So if he goes into a mikveh, which is fully functional, of course, you immerse yourself in the mikveh, so you're relieved of the tumah. Okay? But now I find the mikveh to be deficient. I have a question, when did he immerse himself? Pre-deficiency, after deficiency. If it was afterwards, that means the tefillah was nothing. So normally, if I would pit a chazaka, the present versus the original, the presumed status determines what the mikveh is. But the mikveh is not a question unto itself. The question of the mikveh has relevance to his status, correct? Because he had a presumed status he was tomei. So I have a chazaka hashta, which causes us to question what the status of the mikveh was. And now he has a presumed status he was tomei. So I have a presumed status of his own plus a deficiency in the mikveh. So although it can't stand up against the presumed status of the mikveh, but in conjunction with his presumed status, it's a 2-to-1. So therefore, what is it? We leave it. We leave it as tomei. They're not canceling each other. No.
Hashta is now it's not good.
A present status cannot override a presumed status. Cannot. A presumed status is always stronger than a present status. But I have another presumed status. I have his presumed status. So therefore it's a 2-to-1. That's what the Gemara is saying. It would be badai. Badai kosher. Because the mikveh is not a transitional chazaka. Here it's a suffix only because the last day is transitional. Definitely would take place at the last one. If it would not be true, that would be like a Sula, a virgin. When did she lose her virginity? The last one we find she's no longer a virgin. Until that point, we say she was definitely a Sula. It has no relevance to our whole discussion, correct? So now the Gemara asks another question. Now, when you tithe something or something else, let's say you have wine, which hasn't been tithed. It's called teva. What happens if wine sours? What is it called? It's called chometz, vinegar. Vinegar and wine, although it's wine vinegar, it's considered another species. You cannot tithe from one species on the other. Let's say a person has a barrel of vinegar and he wants to tithe from the vinegar on wine. It's not a valid tithing. The wine retains its tevel status. It's tevel. So let's say a person checks the barrel. He has a large barrel of wine. He says, and all the percentages, he says, there's enough wine in this barrel that, let's say, all the wine that will be pressed for the next 6 months, I'll tithe from that one barrel. And we'll accumulate, and eventually we'll give away the whole barrel to a Kohen. And he relies on that. He keeps tithing, and all of a sudden, about 3 weeks later, they check the barrel, they find out that it's vinegar. So now the question is, when did it turn vinegar? When did the change take place? And we know that barrel wine could turn to vinegar at any time. But it's an external factor which causes a turn to vinegar. So the halach we'll see in a moment. No, but you have to tithe vinegar on vinegar. You can't tithe vinegar on wine. No. The vinegar...
What is the status? Aside from the question, what is the status of it? Is it called, is it tumah? Does it have
We'll see. The question is, no. Wine, which was truma, which becomes vinegar, now it's still truma. Of course it's truma. But our question is, you tithe many more times. So what you tithed on its behalf, was it an effective tithing? What? We don't know. If it was vinegar, was it? No. Initially, when he tithed, the original tithing was, but he only tithed on one barrel. So let's say the one barrel was 1/100th of that barrel. Okay? Now he tithes again, a week later. A week later, it may have turned to vinegar already. So if it turned to vinegar, that means the second tithing is not a valid tithing, because you're tithing from one species on another species. So it's not valid. You're adding to it, but that addition may not be an addition. Exactly. So, but we're not sure exactly. So we're... No. One species versus another. If you want to tithe from grain on grapes, you can't. It's a different species. Olive oil, that's olives. That's within the same species. Olive oil is like olives, but let's say olive oil on wine. You can't take from olive oil on wine. No, not because it's no. It's a different species. It's not because it's an inferior product. That has nothing to do with that. Okay? So Gemara says, "Ma'ishno michovs detanya hoye bodek esachovis lafrish oleo truma." A person went and he evaluated. He checked the barrel of wine to see if it was wine, because he wanted to use it to tithe that the truma should be in that barrel. Truma v'holech, continuously tithes. V'akach nimtzis chometz, and subsequently finds out that barrel was vinegar. Initially he knows factually it was wine. Then it changed to vinegar sometime. Kol gimel yomi vadai. The first 3 days, within the first 3 days after it was checked, we say it definitely didn't turn to vinegar. Because, right, it takes 3 days to turn. But beyond that, we're not sure. It could have happened any moment. This doesn't have to happen. It could have happened. So we have a question. We have a contradiction. Seemingly, right, we have a contradiction in the case of the barrel and the case of the mikvah. We say by the mikvah, we say that the person is definitely tummy. Definitely tummy. And here we say it's a suffix. It's a suffix tevel. Why is it a suffix? It should be vadei tevel. We'll see. V'amar Rab Chanina misura. So Rab Chanina, who came from Surah, what? Well, we'll see. We're going to work out. It'll be a two-to-one. Read it. We'll see. Because I'm dealing with the item that I'm tithing for. Right? I'm tithing from that barrel on something which has a cheskes tevel. Right? If it's not a valid tithing, it remains tevel. We'll see. So Rav Chanina Misura answers, Man Tana Chovis, Reb Shimon. The Tana of Chovis is Reb Shimon. The Gabi Mikvah Nami Sveika Mashvi. That Reb Shimon says, even the case of mikvah, which we just discussed, is not Vade Tome, it's Suffolk. It's also Suffolk, exactly as we said before. The Tanya called Tara Shinas al Gabov, the Mafreya, all the taras which were affected as a result of that mikvah, going retroactively, Beimrushas Hayocha, Beimrushas Harabim, Timeos. The Tanakhama says definitely Tome. Reb Shimon Om there says no. B'Rishus Harabim Toros. If it will be B'Rishus Harabim, you go after presumed status. You have Chazaka. B'Rishus Hayochid Tolin. B'Rishus Hayoch would be a Suffolk. Ava the Rabbanon, Tevel the Mafreya. But according to Rabbanon, it's definite. The person would add the mikvah. Now he touched Truma, Rishus Harabim. So he's a Suffolk. So, okay? Somewhere says, Shiny Hosam Dikal Meimar, Hami Tevel Cheskoso. So Mar says, over there it's different because we say, Hamid Tevel Cheskoso. Veimelo Niskan. Why by the wine do we say that the Tevel, what you tithed on, was Tevel before the tithing, right? And the question is, what you tithe is wine, and it may have been vinegar. So what I'm trying to affect has a presumed status of Tevel, right? So Hami Tevel Cheskoso, Veimelo Niskan, Ba'adraba, Hami Jaino Cheskoso, but the wine has a presumed status. Because before it changed, before it turned, it was wine. Veimelo Hechmitz. Let's say it did not sour. Someone says that's not possible. Hari Hechmitz Lefonecho. Today we find it is it's vinegar. Hochanami Hari Hibogeris Lefonenu. So presently she's what? She's fully mature. So we say Hashtu the boker. We say no. What happened just now? So Samar says Hashtanami Hu Da'achmitz. So say the same thing. It just turned to vinegar now. So that means whatever was tied prior to the moment that you found out should be a valid tithing. And the Gemara says, "Hosam tat l'rius, ocha chad l'rius." Same answer. Hudika. He says in Rishus Harabim, it's Torah. No. We're saying, we're asking, according to the Chachamim, right? According to the Chachamim, from there we see that what? That you don't say what reviewed. Over there it's Vadi, Shmuel, since it's a Suffolk. Just over there we say it's definitely, no, it's not like anything. We don't rule like Reb Shimon. We rule like the Chachamim. So if we rule like the Chachamim, Shmuel should say, you go after Chazok and Hashta. It's vinegar today, it was always vinegar. She was a Bogeris today, she was a Bogeris in the morning. Same thing. As the mikvah is deficient now, is deficient before. Therefore, he's Vade Tomei. So same, as she's fully mature today, she was fully mature this morning. Therefore, the father's marriage should definitely not be a marriage. Reb Shimon doesn't bother. We don't rule like Reb Shimon. Shmuel has to deal with the Chachamim. We're bound to the ruling of the Chachamim. Reb Shimon's irrelevant. Right? Reb Shimon's irrelevant.
All the tithings are different.
Correct.
Now, there was a transition to thing. But let's suppose no tithing was done after it took the thing.
No problem.
So what does one do with it? Because you're supposed to give wine.
No, what you do is, no, it's no problem. You tithe, well, there's a balance. Well, you can only tithe from Tevel on Tevel. So the barrel originally was a barrel of Tevel. And now I'm tithing from that barrel to free up the other Tevel. That's what I'm doing. But I can only free it up if I'm tithing from the same species. So let's say I know for 3 days the wine became Truma. It's Truma wine. Let's say subsequently it turned to vinegar. So now that wine that was Truma now is Truma vinegar. What's the balance? The balance is Tevel. I have another 98 gallons of wine in that barrel that's Tevel. No, wait, I want you to clarify. So what do you have to do now? You have to tithe from the barrel itself, on itself, The tithe, no, just the tithe, no. I know 98 gallons haven't been tithed in the barrel. So I tithe from itself on itself, take out 2 pints of what? Of vinegar, and say that's truma. And it's freed up, so I have truma and chulin intermingled. And I give it to a Kohen, the whole thing. I give it to a Kohen. Let's say the whole barrel was truma and turned to vinegar. Tonight?
All the time. At the time I timed, it was really wrong.
Okay.
And now the barrel I set aside, because I delayed or exposed it or something, it turns to vinegar.
Okay.
It's not truma vinegar.
Correct. So you give it to a Kohen.
But how do I deprive the Kohen?
No.
Because we were supposed to get wine, now I'm giving him vinegar.
Doesn't make a difference. No.
Financially, it's not a good.
What happens if you go and destroy truma? Is there financial liability? There's no financial liability. The Gemara says, what's this mom shein lo tov? Right? Mom shein lo tov, because there's no claimant. No one Kohen could claim it's mine.
So I don't have to make it up.
No, you don't. No makeup. Let's say you have your designated Kohen that you usually give it to. So it's his wine vinegar. That's ours. It's like I'm a custodian. The moment I tithe it, I have his wine. Now he's welcome to come take it. He didn't come, so it's his wine. That's ours.
You can't say, had you given it to me at the time, I would have the wine.
No claim. He has no claim whatsoever. It's not even a grumma. Yeah.
So it's so good.
Right.
It's like,
Okay.
it's like the Advent, it's still